You're listening to the Boss Yourself First podcast, Season 3, Episode 20. Today on the Boss Yourself First podcast, I am honored to welcome Dr. Joey Faucette, a leader whose work inspires people and organizations to work positive in a world that is often, let's face it, negative. Through his books, coaching, and speaking, Dr. Joey helps attract top talent, engage employees, and create workspace cultures where people actually want to show up and not to just work, but to thrive. His mission is all about building workplaces that work for everyone, where positivity fuels productivity and purpose. I met Dr. Joey through a mutual friend who guested on his Work Positive podcast, and she said, "Robyn, you've got to meet him." It was such a fun conversation. So she made the introduction, and I am so glad she did. I love the positivity he puts out into the world, and you, my friends, are about to experience that for yourself, so I will wait no longer. Dr. Joey, welcome to the show.
Robyn, I'm so delighted to be here. Who was your friend that introduced us? I'm blocking on that.
Sabine Gideon.
Oh, yes. I am president of her fan club, just to position myself properly. Love some Sabine Gideon.
Exactly. Well, I am glad she made the intro. I'm glad you're here. For those who may not be aware of your work or even familiar with your podcast, which I highly recommend, what's part of your message and what do you want people to walk away with?
Well, I love talking about that on the Boss Yourself podcast because ultimately we have a choice. We can either claim responsibility for our actions and attitudes and our own contribution to the positive or negative culture, or we can blame other people. So Mel Robbins kind of made a big deal out of the let them theory. So it's sort of in that vein, in that I control what I can control and I can't the rest, which is probably about 98.7% of the rest of what's going on in the world around me. So just choosing my thoughts daily and how I interpret and frame my thoughts around the culture in which I am, and then making choices that are not only best for me, certainly that's part of the boss yourself philosophy, right? But are also best for others, and just taking responsibility for my actions.
I love it. Yes. Sometimes we call it the blame habit here in Boss Yourself world, where we actually sometimes don't even notice we're doing it. But when we blame and we don't own it, then we're abdicating our power. And I love how you mentioned choice, that emphasis on we choose how we show up, regardless of how other people in our world are showing up. Fabulous. All right. So
Thank you.
this season, Dr. Joey, we're calling it the season of permission. And we've been talking a lot about it. My listeners might be a little bit weary on the permission front, but we're going to keep building it because I feel like...
No way. No way. I need reminding daily about my 3 permissions.
Yes, exactly. Just to remind ourselves around what that looks like. And so that's a beautiful segue into my next question, Dr. Joey. What's the permission you're giving yourself right now in this particular season of your life and work?
Man, thank you so much for that. First of all, as we're recording this, my wife and I told you a moment ago, are celebrating our 43rd wedding anniversary tomorrow. So it's an amazing time to give myself permission to explore what that means, because I've never been married to the same woman 43 years before. So what can that look like? What are the exciting parts of that adventure? What are the things I need to improve and do better as a husband? That was a part of my morning meditation today, help me to discover those places where I can be a better partner to her after 43 years. Because I don't ever want to just dial it in. Some other permissions that I'm giving myself are to really, really, really enjoy our 2 granddaughters. One is about 30 days old, and the other is 5.5 years old, starting kindergarten. Just experiencing the awe and wonder of life allows me to focus on what's really important and to pick up on one of your permissions to fly. Another thing I'm giving myself permission to do in this season of life is to let's just see how much we can do and accomplish to impact others' lives. So as you know, I am writing a short book a month, and based on conversations with amazing people like you and others. And so just learning how to do that, how to stay productive, it forces me to delegate to others, right? Because there's no way I can make my unique contribution, but it also forces me to, or at least I choose to force myself into a space where I can choose others with whom to partner based on core values and the behaviors that we all have. And then speaking truth into those relationships about how, we're united around these core values. So let's make sure our actions support that. So those are three things in my current season of life. I'm just having a ball around.
Mm. Okay, listeners, did you hear that? Did you hear that, my friends? Did you hear all that positivity around those permissions? I love it, Dr. Joey. And I think underlying every one of those, what I heard was this growth
For
mindset
sure.
was that I'm having a blast. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm not dialing it in as a husband or as a coach or a
Mhm.
leader. I want to continue to build impact. But I also really love, Dr. Joey, at least what I noticed was the way that you emphasize connection and relationship in building your own impact. You're also leaning into other people's and kind of building momentum together.
Oh, for sure. I am more collaborative now than I ever have been. One of my faux pas early in my career was to allow testosterone to wash too frequently across my prefrontal cortex. So I thought I had to know it all, be it all, do it all. Man, that's a lie that you tell yourself. I know you work with a lot of women, but they adopt that also and tell themselves that lie. I just got tired of believing that lie and just chose to believe something else. You do hear a growth mindset there, big devotee of that. Growth Mindset and Culture was my very first book this year in 2025. So that's Growth Mindset and Culture that showed up in January. And it's so important to creating a work positive culture to have that growth mindset.
I love it. Yes, the growth mindset, I see it in every one of the permissions that you're giving yourself. So I kind of want I always want something kind of applicable for my listeners. So if my listeners wanted to start creating a more positive culture tomorrow, even if they aren't the CEO at their job, what's one thing they could do to shift the atmosphere around them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't have to be the CEO in your job. So first of all, don't believe that lie. Because that gets into the blame game that you were talking about earlier. Well, it's the CEO's fault. Now, yes, leadership is important. We want positive leaders. We want to lead positive, right? However, you can claim the power that you need to begin to create a work positive culture right there, right now, wherever you find yourself, regardless of how toxic that culture is. And what will happen is you do these, really going to kind of be two things that I tell you. As you do these two things, I call them dots. Do one thing. I'll give you two dots here in just a moment. As you do these things, you will grow yourself. And I'm convinced that if you can, in the midst of adversity and toxicity, begin to create more positivity for yourself, giving yourself permission, bossing yourself first, then you can do it in much better cultures as well. So rather than blame the culture, you find yourself in the leadership who's creating this toxicity and negativity, do these two things. First thing is get up every morning. It might be 10 minutes early. I know some of us are not morning people, but get up every morning and really spend some time with yourself. Do a couple of things. I refer to it as a mental breakfast. You're literally feeding your mind positivity in the morning rather than doom scrolling to start your day or allowing newscasts to cast the die of your mind and negativity because the journalistic mantra is if it bleeds, it leads. So if you're exposing your brain first thing in the morning to the worst things that happen overnight or the worst things that may happen today, then you're complicit in the conspiracy for negativity to win because newscasts monetize negativity. They don't care if you're trying to boss yourself or anything that's going on in your work culture.
Okay, wait, wait,
So,
wait. I
yeah,
want to, I want to capture something
yeah.
there. Complicit in what? Complicit.
And the conspiracy
Complicit in the conspiracy.
that all these news outlets that are push media, they are pushing this toxicity and negativity into our brains. What I want you to give yourself permission to do is to choose pull media. And pull media are those sources that you read or can listen to and you maintain editorial license and control over. So you can stop them. You can read the first paragraph and move on, listen to the first paragraph and move on. Instead of that, do two quick things. Take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and read or listen to something positive, something that feeds your soul, something that feeds your brain. And secondly, I love music. And so just listen to some positive music. I don't think Hank Williams just "I'm so lonesome I can cry" is a good one, or any kind of tears in your beer, but just something that preferably gets you up out of the chair and moving, so that puts a lift in your mind. I love the music I grew up with in the '60s and '70s, so I am always taking myself back to being 17, which my wife doesn't always appreciate. Nonetheless, I'm constantly back in a positive headspace where I'm feeling younger, and I could give you the research that shows that really works in terms of the way you appear and show up. But anyway, the second thing is in the evenings, do the same thing. You have to write in your gratitude diary. You know, we've been talking about this for 20 years. It's become very popular now to talk about your gratitude diary, gratitude journal. But just write about 3 positive things that happened that day for you. Unpack those. You can journal a little, you can journal a lot, you can write a paragraph or a sentence, you can write a page, whatever you want to do. What you're literally doing there, Robin, is to put positive seeds into your brain, and that's what goes into your subconscious. And as your subconscious grows that overnight, you wake up more positively rested rather than watching a murder mystery or shooting or something going on. Again, the nightly news. And because then overnight you'll be trying to solve a case or a murder case or a car accident or the economy, or you'll be trying to solve something all night and you wake up more tired and go to bed. Just write down 3 things you're grateful for from that day, as little as you want. And I promise you'll sleep better overnight. So I gave you 2 dots, 2 that you can start doing today.
I love it. Do one things, 2 dots. I hope everyone took notes because I think that was great wisdom and really powerful practices for bossing yourself first. Because as you said, you are making choices that set yourself up for success. One, set yourself up for success in the
Yep.
daytime by setting your brain in a positive mode and going ahead and starting the day that way. You're choosing that. And then the second dot was set yourself up for success of a good night's sleep by planting these seeds of positivity in your brain to take root overnight and waken refreshed and ready to roll. I love it. Thank you, Dr. Joey. Those were great. I appreciate it. Okay. So, in that vein, and it doesn't have to be about those 2 dots in
Okay.
particular, but I think you're a great storyteller. And I would love to hear a story, and it can be about a team, it can be about an individual, but who embraced the work positive mindset and the changes that you saw.
Wow. Well, change is difficult for all of us, but I'm working with one particular leader who owns a company right now, and we've had so much success. I'm working with the whole company now. I do 360s on the front end with leaders oftentimes, and we do ours, what I call a narrative 360. And so I participate with the leader, and who are the 6, 7 people that you value and trust. And I give them different categories, and then what are the questions, 6, 7 questions I'm going to ask them. So it's a highly collaborative enterprise, which opens up the mind to receiving this information. So here I go off to interview these 6, 7 people, and oh my God, it was a train wreck from the first interview. It was just like, oh, he's the worst leader in the world, and all this stuff. And I'm like, ooh, Faucette, what have you gotten yourself into? So I felt for the guy so much that I said, usually we do these things virtually, but in this case, got in the car and drove to him. I said, "Here, I've arranged this retreat center. Let's go and spend a day together." Because I'm thinking, oh, how am I going
Wow.
to share this with him? But to his credit, I unfolded it as gently and kindly and as diplomatically as one can share awful news. And man, was just met with some silence, maybe a little mist in his eyes. And he said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm not really surprised. Will you help me?" And I said, "Yeah." So we began together in executive coaching time at least twice a month for 12 months. And this dude dug deep. He transformed. He gave himself permission to fly, Robin, and really went and asked forgiveness for things, all right, to people that he'd said things, and just really stepped up to the plate. And it was so exciting to,
No, wait. He went to his team and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry that this is."
yep, yep,
Wow.
yep. This is not the best version of myself. I owe you an apology." And I mean,
Mm.
not just 1 or 2 people, but the whole team.
Wow. Okay, so I would call that we talk about that as a ripple effect here because and I'm gonna guess towards the end of your story, and I'm gonna ask you about the transformation of the team as a whole, but I'm gonna guess that he modeled something that is going to create ripple effect, and I wanna hear the end of the story. Go ahead. Sorry.
Not just a ripple, it was a tsunami, literally. After that year, just to fast forward a little bit, this I'm completing as we're recording this year 1 of coaching and working as a culture architect with the whole company because I got invited in based on his transformation. He has, it's not exactly a franchise, but it's that kind of agreement with, I call it the mothership, a larger corporation. That leader, that CEO reached out to me and said, "Wow, what a transformation in this guy. How'd you do that?" So we're looking at helping others that associate with that company doing the same thing. I don't have the final numbers because they're not all in for the year, but our initial numbers are showing like a 58% increase in gross revenue. So that's why I call it a tsunami because it's
Tsunami.
more than just a ripple. I could give you some other metrics, but then I'd give away the industry that it's in, and then I don't want to do that just to protect my client's confidentiality, but it's been an amazing transformation. I got to, in some ways, witness it, Robin, if that makes any sense. Now, of course, we as executive coaches, we help people discover permission to fly. So powerful questions were a part of that process. A lot of honest authenticity and transparency and just digging deep into what's important to him, how his strengths and weaknesses show up in the company, and just finding some ways to do that. Now, there was some self-selection that went on among the team members anyway because there was so much collateral damage over time. But that's okay. That needed to happen because now he has emerged from his own chrysalis, if you will, and is really a new, much more beautiful person who's much more successful too. So, oftentimes when we take our companies from one level to another, it means that we have to find some other folks to help us go even higher. And so that's what's happened.
That's a great story, and there was a lot there actually, because it started with him and he wasn't that surprised. And first of all, I want to celebrate the fact that you created space for him to process this. You said, "I've got a retreat center for us to go to. Let's just spend the day together."
Yeah, that's
And
right.
you created space for him to do that, and he stepped into it and then asked for support and for help. And I think that that is sometimes something we miss on our journey is that we get some awareness, but we're not sure what to do with it. And sometimes it really helps to get some outside support, whether that's a coach or a good friend. But I wish everyone could have a coach, and I think that it's such an empowering experience. But to make that more accessible, you and I do this kind of work where we do podcasts and we write books so that people can experience what it's like to have someone come in and help you reframe and help you shift and adjust. So I think it's just a really empowering story, incredible results. And what I really loved was that the results were not just within him, the company saw tangible results in their bottom line, in their profit margins.
Yeah.
They experienced this, you said tsunami. I still call it a ripple effect that turned into a tsunami, but just created massive change, and it started with this willingness, giving himself permission to do this kind of work. So, in that
Yeah.
same vein, clearly you have coached countless leaders on building positive cultures. Based on your conversations and experience, and what you're seeing in the current environment, I want to just lean into your expertise a little bit, Dr. Joey. What permission do you feel people need most to give themselves or maybe their team in order to do that kind of cultural transformation?
Yeah. Good question. I'm distilling it all down, 4 decades of experience. But in the current environment, if it's possible, I think we're seeing economic conditions grow even more unstable. Of course, there are the headlines. Recent ones include Amazon, you know, releasing 14,000 people from their work. Got a text message from a high level executive with an international company that does billions of dollars around the world. And they reshuffled, was the word he used. And so he finds himself out of work. There's a lot of that going on. So there's some people who are just hanging on by their fingernails, just wondering when the next thing's going to happen. If I had to pick one quality or characteristic that I think really cuts the ice in a different direction today and really helps you architect more of a positive work culture, if you can stop masquerading your mistakes as mystery and just get honest and authentic with the people that you lead and say, "Hey, people, I I'm your leader, but that doesn't mean I have all the answers. I'm leaning in and on you, and all of us together can make it through. Insert your economic situation here. We can make it through these layoffs because now we're being asked to do more, or we can make it through this transition while in a VUCA world trying to figure out what AI is doing to our company and to all of us. We can make it, but just creating that human bond that I think authenticity and transparency cements, but trust really forms and become that trustworthy person by just admitting that you're human and stepping up into the relationships so that all of us together really will get through this and our families will still have homes to live in and groceries on the table. But it's going to take all of us.
Yeah, leaning into that community. Yeah. Love that. All right, sir. I know you've piqued interest in my listeners. They're going to want to know you. They're going to want to know your work better. So, how can my listeners connect with you and maybe get a little deeper dive into the work positive message?
Thanks for asking that question. There's all kinds of ways we can do that. We try to make it easy peasy. Mac and cheesy, as my 5-year-old granddaughter says. I like simple and easy, Robyn. So if you want to assess your culture and where you are in the work positive culture journey, I call it, you can go to workpositive.today and we've got a free assessment for you there. Feel free to take that. And we also have a podcast each week ourselves, the Work Positive Podcast, wherever finer podcasts like Robyn's is heard. Ours, maybe not quite as high up as hers, but we're still right there with it. The Work Positive newsletter, also, if you'll go to workpositive.today/newsletter, I write a blog, it's in there. Go to Amazon and just put Dr. Joey Faucette in, and you'll find somewhere around a dozen books. I have been blessed that someone besides my mom reads my stuff and finds value in it. So this month, Win at Work, Maximize Your Culture for Peak Performance is the book that's out there. And I just learned a ton about performance management systems from some of my guests. I mean, really brilliant people from all over the world. And so I curated the content from those podcasts and then did some research and ran it through the Work Positive Culture Filter. And that little book, which you can read in about an hour or so, is available right now on Amazon.
I love that. I really appreciate your writing style because you do short but deep dives in specific areas. And I think that makes it really, really approachable. So thank you for sharing that and all those great resources. All right, Dr. Joey, before we wrap up,
Okay.
I I have a request. I have a bit of a lightning round ready. Are you up for that?
Lightning round. Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Okay. All right, here we go. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be and why?
You want to know the first thing that popped in my head?
Yes.
Play that funky music, White Boy by Wild Cherry. Because I like to be this paradoxical person who, I'm kind of like a bumblebee. I'm not supposed to fly, but I do. Because I just like to get out there. And so many people expect me as a baby boomer to be in the tried and true top-down method, and I'm all flat organization and relationships. So that's how I would describe my leadership style. Play that funky music, White Boy.
All right. All right. What is a book that you read and recommend over and over?
Oh, we become friends, and I'm such a fanboy. It's a big deal for him to call me a friend. Dr. Bob Johansen wrote a book, The New Leadership Literacies, and my mentor coach, before he passed away, fortunately gifted me with knowing this book and Bob, and oh my goodness, now I've read Office Verse, and I've read Future Back Thinking, and Bob was around when the internet was invented, literally. And it was not in 1988, and Al Gore wasn't there. It was 1973 with the Department of Defense, and it was the ARPANET. And so Bob is the president emeritus of the Institute for the Future. Absolutely brilliant, a lifelong learner. He is my hero. So Dr. Bob Johansson's The New Leadership Literacies. I recommend that book all the time. I've probably read it 6 or 7 times.
I love that. All right. Thank you for sharing that. This kind of leads into our next one. What's a piece of advice that you received early in your career but still shapes you today?
Early in my career, I discovered that I have a deep and wide people pleasing streak. And I mean, I'm just fessing up with that because it's the truth. And so I struggled with that, having those crucial conversations with people and always telling the truth and yet speaking it in love. That was a real danger zone for me of thin ice. And so my mentor said to me, Joey, one thing I want you to realize is that sometimes it's not a matter of whether or not you're the bastard, it's whether you spell it with an uppercase or lowercase b. And that really helped me to say, okay, all right, I can be the voice of truth and reason. I can do it diplomatically and kindly, but still say what needs to be said without caving into that dark hole or maybe even black hole of trying to please people.
Yeah, I think that, well, this is your lightning round. I won't build on it. So, restraint. What's one thing, not work, outside of work, that
Uh-huh.
never fails to make you smile?
Oh my goodness, it's our granddaughters. One is 5 and a half. It's a who, not you said one thing. I'll call them thing one and thing two then. How about that? Uh, One is 5 and a half, just started kindergarten, and oh man, of course I don't quite measure up to Gigi, but Pops is quite the fun person to be with. And the other is about 3 and a half. Thing two is 3.5 months old. And she is a quiet, a good baby, pleasant to be with until something's wrong. And then we all know it because she goes from 0 to 100 with crying in about 2.3 seconds. But they always make me smile.
All right, last one.
Okay.
If you could have any musician, past or present, perform at a work positive retreat, who would you
Ooh,
pick?
ooh. You mean besides play that funky music? Geez, who would I choose? Can I give two, please? And they're
Yes.
quite divergent.
Okay.
Johnny Cash would be one. I
Hmm.
just love some Cash. The other would be Prince. Man, from a musical and a lyrical perspective, that dude lit it up for me. So, too divergent, but I told you I'm a paradox.
Very divergent. You spoke truth. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for bringing both joy and wisdom. Thank you for being here today. I always walk away from our conversations feeling lighter and more hopeful and inspired to lead from the inside out.
Thank you.
For those listening who want to bring more positivity into your leadership, your team, make sure you grab a copy of Dr. Joey's latest book, Win at Work. Maximize your culture for peak performance. It is packed with the kind of real world encouragement and practical tools you heard today. It's perfect for any leader who wants to transform their culture. So you can find all the links in the show notes. And as always, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Boss Yourself First. Dr. Joey, thanks again for being here. It is always a joy.
What a pleasure, Robin. Thank you so much.
Of course, and listeners, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a reminder that positivity and permission start with self leadership. Until next time, I'm Robyn White, and remember, lead yourself like it matters because it matters. Take care, everyone.